started lilting to the right and going, and we went from blah, 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 blah to, And Jensen went up and asked the pilot, hey, we have a situation? And he's like, we most certainly do. Get in your seat, put on your seatbelt, we're doing emergency procedures. We're like, okay, you have my attention, sir. And then we sat there and sat across from each other, Al, Jensen, Misha, me, and sort of this, like, and Cliff was there in the back, and we just kind of were there, trying to go, all right, just kind of do this is gonna be cool, we're gonna be cool, move while the pilot did the maneuver expertly, by the way, obviously, made the U-turn, and landed the plane safely back at YVR. They said we're gonna make an emergency landing. They obviously did some talk on the radio and then announced to us that we're gonna go back to Vancouver. There was no spot to do it between where we were and Vancouver. It was appropriate for this kind of landing. So we made the U-turn and back we went. And so at one point, and I'm sure the pilots were not as nervous as we were. At that point, we're not having a dialogue with them. They're obviously doing their job. But it was definitely one of those things where it was a moment. You know what I mean? Like we all have those things. I don't know if you've been in a car wreck or you've had something where you have that moment and just for a split second, you're like, huh. And it just gives you a pause. It just makes you think for a split second of whatever it is. And it had been a very long emotional day on set, doing a lot of hard work, and coming off that and getting on that airplane and having that moment happen, it was, it just gave us all pause. And it was as close to that kind of experience as I want to have again. Because again, I think the pilots, I was talking to Adam Fergus about it yesterday, the pilots, they train for this all the time, right? They run the simulations all the time. And they're ready for these kind of situations. And like I say, again, it was handled expertly. They were calm, cool, collected, got the plane on the ground. It all was exactly as it should be. And I'm so grateful to them for doing all their training, all their work, and all their focus and all their jobs. It's just for us in the back who don't know, ignorance is painful sometimes. It's not always bliss. And in that situation, not knowing was stressful, so we just were having a kind of a four-way bonding session. And there are funny elements to it in that, we have sort of laughed about things that we said and did in that moment, but there was also maybe I'll just type up a text and be ready to hit send if this shit's gonna hit the ground. That kind of energy. It was just I'm glad I had that experience with those guys. If I'm gonna do that experience, if I'm gonna have that experience, I'm glad I was with four people with whom I've shared a lot, and for whom I have a tremendous amount of respect. The only bummer would be that the headline would be Jensen Ackles, Misha Collins, and friends died in a plane crash. And when you dug deeper into the article, it would say Alex Calvert and Rob Benedict were also on the plane. And even in death, they would confuse us. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I tell that story and it sounds really serious, but I think that's only because I'm rarely serious. At the end of the day, it was an experience. I'm glad we had the experience. There was a moment where when we got off the plane, there was a decision to be made, like, what are we doing now? Are we going back? Are we getting on another plane? And we had a bit of a split camp in terms of mentally and emotionally where we were in the space, but I can say that it was both. I can't speak to Jensen, to Misha's conversations with his family or Alcal's, but Jensen and Rich both went off and called their wives. And both their wives said, get on a plane, go to Las Vegas. Because, separately, both our wives said, I called my wife.
Get back on the horse.
Yeah, I called my wife. And she said, what are you gonna do? I told her the whole story. And she said, what are you gonna do? And I said, I don't know. She said, what's Jensen doing? I said, I think he's getting on a plane. She's like, you're hanging up, you're calling Jensen, and you're getting on the plane with Jensen. Which was not the answer I expected. And I called Jensen, and he's like, Daniil said the same thing. Didn't see that coming. But it was the get back on the horse thing. It was like, get back on the horse. get back on the horse. You know, don't let anxiety win the day, because this happens. It was solvable. The plane did what it was supposed to do. The pilots did what they were supposed to do, and I'm standing on a convention stage in Las Vegas, Nevada, telling the story. So that, you know, that's the story. That is the story for now, and it'll get funnier when I tell it again later. Thank you.
So just so glad you're all right, man. That would have been.
I am too, and
that would have been a big effing bummer.
Oh man, boy, it would really boned photo ops with
geez.
Robin Rich. And you know, again, I will say, I know a lot of times Robbie and I'll stand on stage and we'll tip our caps to teachers. We'll tip our caps to people who wear the uniform that serves our nation and the allied nations. We've loved to call out first responders of every stripe. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the responsible people who fly us all over the globe for doing all the research, all the training that it takes. Because we came off the plane and we were all having a calming beverage.
All reports say that it was a very, very healthy
beverage.
Healthy pour.
Well,
healthy
we got
pour.
it up, and Ackles like, you know, we sitting like, to terra firma. And you know, the pilots were there, and we asked the co-pilot, who co-pilot is also usually ranked as pilot as well, but she was serving as co-pilot in this instance. I'm like, has that ever happened before? She says, no, I've never had that happen on that plane. I said, but in simulations, you obviously train for that. She goes, and in simulations, we train for it, and it's not just that. In simulation, that engine goes, pressure drops, landing gear won't come down. Like, we deal with multiple things in a simulation. So she goes, even though you never wanted to have in real life, this was one problem with two people dealing with it. You can do that. So, you know, the simulations that they go through are far worse than most of the events that really occur. Anyway, if you are in the air traffic or piloting field, thank you for keeping us in the air, all of us, all over the world every day. I appreciate it very much. All right, where are we? Over here?